There's blood on his face that isn't his. The man on the floor is still screaming about an ear, his ear. Junwoo isn't even looking at him anymore. He's already walking toward the next one. This isn't a fight. A fight means the other side has a chance. 3 minutes earlier, he didn't have any blood on him at all. It starts somewhere else entirely. A gym locker room, a man on the phone, sweating through his shirt. He's just been asked about Junwoo's past, and he already knows what that means. Drugs, prison, a family that starves without him. He calls his contact in a panic, begging for advice, and on the other end of that call, a voice reacts with nothing but contempt. Whatever this man is afraid of, the person he's calling isn't afraid of anything. He doesn't get to finish the call. A woman steps out of the shadows behind him, with a baseball bat already swinging. He goes down before he even registers her as a threat. This is Soo-hyun, and she doesn't do subtle. She drags him into a locker room chair and starts asking questions the way someone asks when they already know the answer matters more than the man giving it. His name is Jin-hyung. He used to be an athlete. Now he's limping, broke, and terrified of the wrong people finding out what he knows. So he talks. What he gives her is years old, but it's the kind of history that explains everything happening right now. Junwoo wasn't always a name people said with fear. He was a kid obsessed with jiu-jitsu, the kind who only looked alive on the mat. Talented enough that grown adults underestimated him and paid for it. He had one rule for himself: no shortcuts, no drugs, win clean or don't win at all. That rule made him an enemy to exactly one person, a senior teammate, 5 years older, who lost to him and never let it go. Changgyu, talented in his own right, but the kind of talented that needs politics and bullying to feel secure. He hated that Junwoo trained like a kid with nothing to prove and somehow had nothing to fear either. When the team's coach floated the idea of doping before a major competition, Junwoo shut it down in front of everyone, humiliating the coach on the spot. Changgyu laughed, not at the coach, at something else entirely, an idea forming. At the actual qualifier for a spot on the Asian Games, Changgyu beat him clean on paper. Underneath that result was a drug that worked better than anyone expected, and Junwoo didn't find out the truth until it had already cost him everything he was fighting for. Here's where the story stops being about a tournament. Junwoo made a different kind of promise. To his mother as a kid, standing outside a door he wasn't allowed past. He told her he'd get stronger, that he'd make her able to live in that house with her head up. His father watched him keep a version of that promise years later, as Junwoo beat his own stepbrother half to death and warned him he might actually kill him next time. Nobody in that family stopped him. Nobody had to. The warning was the point. Junwoo's mother was dying while this was happening. Terminal. She'd spent her whole life as collateral in someone else's family, Junwoo's father's family, and her last move on the board was asking that man to take her son in once she was gone. The deal she got back wasn't generous. He later tells Junwoo to win gold at the Asian Games and the family would acknowledge both of them, him and his mother. Prove it or stay invisible. Changgyu's win didn't just take a medal. It took the only proof Junwoo had that he was worth claiming, that his mother would be acknowledged. She died not long after. Whatever she said to him in those last moments, the story doesn't give it back to us in words, only a smile and the knowledge that it was the last thing he ever saw of her. At her funeral, Junwoo found Jin-hyung and asked him one question. Did you know about the drugs? Jin-hyung had known. The coach told him to keep quiet, and he believed Junwoo would win regardless, so he said nothing. Days after the funeral, Junwoo offered to train with him. Jin-hyung said yes. Junwoo put him in a leg lock, and when the tap came, he didn't release it. He kept going until the ankle gave. Calculated. Not rage, punishment, delivered with a smile, for a silence that cost him his future. That's the same day everyone in that gym learned something about Junwoo that they couldn't unlearn. Changgyu confronted him over the loss anyway, mocking him for losing to a junior. Junwoo's answer wasn't words. He bit the man's ear off. Changgyu never went to the Asian Games. He quit the sport entirely rather than live with what losing to a clean fighter and then to an unhinged one had done to him. Jin-hyung's information lines up with something Detective Jong already heard from the gym's old director, a supplier with slit eyes and a scar across his neck, the kind of detail that only means one thing to anyone who's run into Director Kim before. Jong brings this straight to Soo-hyun. Junwoo's drug network and Junwoo's personal history just turned out to be the same investigation. Cut to the man with that scar. Kim is in a private office with someone we already know the shape of. Long hair, gray shirt, recognizable now as the very same Changgyu. They're not reminiscing. They're planning. The target is Junwoo, and Kim's reasoning for wanting him ruined isn't ambition or fear. I've gotten bored of an old toy. That's present day. Now the family. Junwoo gets summoned to his father's estate, where his stepbrother, the vice president, is already waiting, sniping at him for being late. Their father arrives moments later, and the tone in the house changes immediately. Polite to staff, brutal to family. He puts the vice president on the floor for mishandling blackmail leverage against prosecutors, lecturing him calmly about discipline while he's still catching his breath. Then he turns to Junwoo for a status update. The factory's relocated and running. The drug project is moving forward, and Junwoo offers something nobody in the room expects. He wants to test the new drug on himself, instead of using it on his target, a teenager named Sejun. His father studies him for a long moment, references the old rule Junwoo used to live by, references the mother who's no longer alive to see whatever this is. Then his stepbrother drops the detail that changes the room. Section Chief Kim already drugged Sejun, without permission. Junwoo's father is displeased. Junwoo says nothing in front of him, leaves first, alone, before the rage shows on his face. Once it's just him, the mask comes off completely. Parasitic bastard, he says, and it isn't an insult thrown into the air. It's a decision being made. He finds Kim and starts beating him before either of them finishes a sentence. Kim tries excuses, player management, efficiency, and Junwoo isn't interested in any of it. He wants the real reason Sejun got drugged against orders, and Kim, on his knees, decides honesty is more useful than dignity right now. Don't you also have their blood flowing in you after all? Junwoo stops being interested in talking. Kim notices the shift and plays the only card he has left. Team leader Kong isn't around to hold Junwoo back this time, so he's brought his own leverage. He gestures, and the man standing behind him is introduced with 3 words. Say hi. You two know each other, right? It's Changgyu. Alive, present, and immediately calling Junwoo by a name he hasn't used in years. His birth name. From a life before any of this. Changgyu hasn't changed his approach. He's still trying to humiliate his way out of a fight he's already lost once. He brings up old injuries like trophies, mocks the loneliness, mocks the violence, and gets the same answer he got the first time, just delivered by a more dangerous version of the same man. By the time the room settles, Changgyu is missing his second ear. This is the moment the story opened on. Now it has context, and the context doesn't make it less brutal, it makes it inevitable. Junwoo isn't done. Kim runs and Junwoo runs him down, catching him near a display case, beating him into the floor while Kim's mouth keeps working, even after his body's given up. I don't care whether you guys die or become crippled for life, Junwoo tells him, and for once, it doesn't sound like a threat. It sounds like a fact he's already decided on. That's when the door opens, and the only person in this story who can actually stop him walks through it, his father. And instead of being furious at what Kim did, he calls it efficient. Judging from what I heard, Section Chief Kim's decisions and orders were effective. Then comes the part that actually hurts. The new drug project. The one Junwoo just volunteered his own body for. Gets pulled out of his hands entirely and handed to the man he just tried to kill. His father tells him plainly that Kim was never his subordinate. Kim was placed there specifically to manage him, because his judgment and his violence are liabilities, not assets. So that when they see your poor judgment, they can make a business-like judgment and straighten you out. Junwoo's only job now, according to his father, is to focus on the upcoming match against Sejun. Entertainment, for VIP buyers who want their drug demonstrated on a body, not a controlled experiment run by Junwoo himself. The man who just bled 2 people in front of his father gets told, calmly, to go train. Kim, beaten and bloody, still finds the energy to twist the knife on his way out. Good luck on your training. Junwoo doesn't hit him again. He doesn't have to. You look even shittier when you grin, he says. And that's the whole of his response. Anger with nowhere left to go. Because the person who actually controls the leash just yanked it. Across the city, the boy this entire operation is circling around has no idea any of this just happened. Sejun is sparring at the boxing gym, and Do-hyun is on the other end of it, getting hit harder and faster than he's ever been hit by this particular friend. He's not losing because Sejun got lucky. He's losing because something about Sejun's body is moving differently than it used to. Faster reactions, more power behind ordinary combinations, the kind of improvement that doesn't happen from training alone. Do-hyun doesn't say it out loud yet. He just thinks it, watching Sejun's gloves come at him again. He's become this strong with just a drug? He doesn't get an answer. Sejun's already moving in for the next exchange.